Hi folks, Wooden Boat Dan here. Just wanted to give you a heads up. The podcast you're about to listen to was recorded several years ago, so some of the phone numbers, email addresses, website links, and time-sensitive information are no longer valid. Please keep that in mind as you listen. If you'd like to contact me, my email address is woodenboatdan@gmail.com. Thank you and enjoy the podcast. Welcome to Hooked on Wooden Boats weekly podcast episode number 86. I am your host, Dan Matson, aka Wooden Boat Dan. If you can't do it, well, I don't know. Think about it. Maybe you can. And this is the world's first podcast fully dedicated to celebrating the art, craft, history, tradition, and romance of wooden vessels around the world. On all the continents, in all the countries, all the waterways, in the garages, in the basements, in the workshops, in the schools, in the morages, hanging up outside homes. They're all over the place, folks. Just start looking for them and you'll see them. Welcome to the podcast today. It's great to have you on board. If you haven't been here before, you're in for a good time. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. It's great to have you. Today's featured segment is an interview with Andy Stewart of Emerald Marine Carpentry in Anacortes, Washington. Andy has several partners in his business in Anacortes where they build, restore, and repair and refurbish wooden vessels of all sizes, and Andy's got a great story to tell, so I would encourage you to stick around for that. This past week, I spent about probably a total of 5 hours sanding my canoe. Yes, folks, I'm bringing up the canoe again, believe it or not. Sanding the interior and the gunnels, where I've got 3 coats of epoxy, so I'm sanding in preparation for varnish, which I plan on starting tomorrow. So I'm getting there, folks. Be patient. This sucker is going in the water this month, and I hope to do some videotaping of that and share that with the Hooked on Wooden Boat community, so that'll be fun. Earlier this week, I spent the day in Anacortes, Washington, interviewed Andy Stewart at Emerald Marine, which is today's interview. Also got to go to Jay Smith's shop in Anacortes. Jay was one of the first people I interviewed on Hooked on Wooden Boats 007, who, among other things, is building a 56-foot Viking ship. And so I got to get an update on the Viking ship. Got a lesson on trunnels, which are a wooden peg for fastening planks to frames that have been used for over 1,000 years. Jay's making some of those for the Viking ship and some other fun stuff, so that'll be coming up on a future podcast, so stick around for that. Tomorrow I'm planning to do my first phone interview. I've got all my equipment set up and working properly, so I'm really excited about that. Like I mentioned before, I bought this equipment a year ago and I've never used it, so now I'm going to get with it. And I'm also considering connecting with people, a group of people around the world in different locations that I could call, say, once every 3 to 6 months and get an update from what's happening in their corner of the world with wooden boats, kind of a correspondent, if you will. So I'm working on getting a correspondent on the East Coast, first of all, and then I'm going to look at other locations also. So that's pretty exciting. We've got some new subscribers to my monthly e-newsletter this week. Lane M., John Merrick, Erdem Ericsoy, Yoshiki and Judy Tabahashi, and Ken Vance. Welcome to the newsletter, folks. Great to have you on board. If you haven't subscribed yet, it's high time you subscribe to my monthly e-newsletter, where I send out updates, tips, resources, videos, fun things about what's happening with Hooked on Wooden Boats. There's no obligation. All you've got to do is give me your first and last name and your email address. If you'd like to subscribe, go to hookedonwoodenboats.com/subscribe, and you can take it from there. So please get on board if you're not already. This Saturday, May 11th, 2013, I'm going to be at the Olympia Wooden Boat Fair in Olympia, Washington. So if you're going to be there or plan on being there or can make it there, please look me up. And you can even call me on my cell phone, 425-319-7800. I'd love to see you there and hear your story and have a chance to hook up. So keep that in mind. Well, as you know, this podcast is about getting in the wooden boat game one way or the other. Lots of ways to do it. Wooden boats are really a lot of fun. They're traditional. There's a lot of art and craft involved in building these boats. There's people behind the boats that are very passionate. It's a small niche in the niche. I like saying that word, niche. Some people say niche. Some people say niche. I say niche. There's a lot of, what was I saying now? Now I distracted myself. There's a lot of people in this niche, and the longer I do this podcast, the more people I find. It's amazing. When I first started this, it's like, okay, who am I going to talk to now? But now there's like a gazillion people I can talk to, and it's pretty exciting. So I would just encourage you to get in the game if you're not already in. And building a boat is really a blast. And I'm going to be writing a book about that, how to go through the process of deciding what to build and how much it's going to cost and how long it'll take, what kind of resources you need, what your expectations should be. Should you start big or small? What construction method should you use? Should you buy a kit? All those kinds of things. I'm about halfway done with my book. I'll be releasing that here this summer. So if you're interested in that, stick around, and I'll be announcing that here soon. Again, thanks for tuning in today. We're going to move on to the interview with Andy Stewart of Emerald Marine. Take it away, Andy. Okay, it is May 6th, the day after Cinco de Mayo. And I am at Emerald Marine Carpentry in Anacortes, Washington with Andy Stewart. Andy, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you. Andy contacted me here recently. He's been listening to the podcast and enjoying it, so that's always cool to know somebody's listening. My mom and yourself now. No, I'm just kidding. It's actually getting to be more listeners all the time. But Andy, tell me about your personal history and where you've been the last few years. What you've been up to?
Well, I love living in Anacortes. Beautiful place, and lots of big water here, and good boats, good people who know a lot about boats. So we've been making it home here. My wife and we have 2 kids who just left the house now. So we've been building up this little business, and I'm very fortunate to say that we seem to have plenty of work, and people like our work, and keep coming back to us, and that's really what we've been doing.
Where'd you grow up?
My dad was in the Foreign Service, so I grew up overseas and also on the East Coast.
Okay.
I ended up in the Northwest because my mom grew up along the Columbia River, and we'd come back out here when we were home leave and whatnot. And,
where at on the Columbia?
My grandparents' farm is in Ridgefield.
Oh, really?
But my grandpa was a Congregationalist minister, so he had a church in Astoria for a while, and my great-grandparents' place is in Longview, and then he had a church in Northeast Portland, a big Finnish-speaking church there.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah, he's a really great man, I think. I mean, had a lot of people who loved him, and he cared for a big community of people. Yeah,
I grew up in that area myself in Vancouver, Washington. We boated on the Columbia, and I hunted ducks in Ridgefield at the Wildlife Refuge, Reserve, I guess it was called, I don't know. So that's a fun area. Yeah, so you used to come and visit when you were a kid.
Yeah, right.
And did you do some boating as a kid too?
Some, I learned to sail at summer camp in Europe. We lived in Switzerland at the time, and my other grandparents lived on a big reservoir, so I learned to row with that grandpa. And but we weren't very boat centered. We moved around too much. But my great uncle had a boat shop in Ilwaco. Actually, that's my great uncle. So I'd go down there and to see that.
What boat shop was that?
It was Cola Brothers.
Oh, okay. I worked in Ilwaco Boat Works down there one summer.
All right.
That was a long time ago. That was in the 70s.
I should ask you about a Ilwaco Boat Works boat that's just turned up in Skagit Valley later.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a Rhodes that was built for the Commodore of the Portland Yacht Club.
Interesting.
But we'll get off the topic.
Yeah, right. So then, when did you move to the Northwest, Andy?
My family split up, so I was 73.
73. And where did you move to? Olympia?
We moved to Vancouver.
Vancouver, Washington.
Yeah, right.
You did?
For a year, and then moved to Bellevue. So I went to high school in Bellevue, and then lived in Seattle, went to the UW for a while, and then went to Evergreen.
Okay.
And then lived in Olympia for a total of 18 years or something.
What did you study at Evergreen, Andy?
Political science and fine art, American history.
Okay.
Evergreen's a pretty diverse place.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did you you got into boating there though, or boat building?
Yeah.
Or how did that happen?
Well, I had been doing a lot of mountaineering, and I've got to know more and more people who had boats, and a lot of my skills transferred to where I really enjoyed sailing. And of course, Olympia has a lot of water there, and so I was doing a lot of sailing, and I started fixing up my own boats. And I'd always been doing woodworking all through junior high and high school.
Oh, you were?
So I was fairly proficient at that, and then there were some really good people to work with throughout Olympia. And by the time I graduated from Evergreen, I was sort of tired of academic life. I didn't want to pursue academia, and I didn't want to be a state worker, which a lot of people are there.
Oh, yeah.
And
state capital.
Yeah, right. And I really had this idea that I wanted to travel by boat and extend my range.
Travel by boat?
Yeah, I mean, especially locally. I mean, so much to see and do just within the perimeter of human power or sail power here.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful place to live. And
so did you have a boat at that time of your own, or?
Yeah.
What'd you have?
I started out with an O'Day, little swing keel O'Day that we, would cruise to Canada and back and whatnot to buy beer because I was underage, But, then I fixed up a T-Bird and I sailed that a lot.
Oh, okay. So a plywood boat then?
Yeah, T-Birds.
Yeah.
Good sailing boats.
Yeah.
Some other friends had T-Birds, and we used to cruise those between Olympia and Canada quite a lot too. Once in a while we get as far as Desolation Sound, but usually it was just into the Gulf.
That's a pretty good
Gulf
distance
Islands.
from South Sound, Olympia area to
take
Canada.
a couple month cruise or a couple.
Oh, really? Really, going some long cruises. Yeah.
Those are great light air boats, and if you start out in the
T-Birds are.
Yeah, if you start out in the spring, they're good heavy air boats too. And if you start out in the spring, you get blown up there, and come back in the fall on the northerlies, you kind of get blown back.
Really interesting.
I mean, generally speaking.
Yeah. Interesting.
So I was doing that, and then wanted to live on a bigger boat and continue what we're doing. My wife and I used to live on that T-Bird together, and we really liked that. She was still going to school, and we had a house ashore also, but we'd spend most of the time on the boat. And I could, sail her to school and then sail across the bay, get on my bike, go apprentice as a sailmaker.
Oh, really?
Then ride back to the boat, sail back across the bay, pick her up, stay aboard for the night, and then repeat the whole thing.
Fun.
So it never, I'm just trying to get back there, right? So,
yeah.
So we had the opportunity to buy this boat, and this is the 36-foot Yawl.
Yeah.
And
the boat we're sitting on here. Yeah.
And so we did that, and that's really where I served my apprenticeship, if you will,
on this boat?
Traditional boats.
Oh.
Because my learning, I had a lot to learn. I was surrounded by some good boat builders, though, and I was working in boat yards, and I had a good shop too with some art furniture makers as partners.
Oh.
So I had a lot of resources at hand, and just one project led to the next. I worked with Carl Brownstein at Wright's a Man Boat Shop, if you know who that is.
I've heard of it, yeah.
Yeah, that was a good thing. We built some good-sized wooden boats in the early 80s out towards Shelton.
Yeah.
And he's a really talented small boat builder, too.
Is he still there?
No, he moved to the interior of Canada somewhere, Saskatchewan, I think.
We're going to pause this here for just a second. The compressor goes off.
Yeah.
Okay, we're back. The compressor's off. So we were talking about Carl at Rights of Man. Now, is he still in Shelton?
No, he started working with the Lady Washington's longboats and kids in the Aberdeen School District, I think, and he did that for almost 10 years, maybe. The Pacific Challenge, too. He was a big supporter of that. But he moved inland in Canada. Where's it? I think Saskatchewan. I haven't talked to him in 5 years.
Yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Is he still building boats, you think?
I don't think so. He's
retired or
close to retired, and he was a educator. You know, he got his teaching certificate, and that's what he was focusing on. Mm-hmm. And I think he stopped building when he started working out in Grays Harbor.
Okay. So this Yawl we're sitting on was your first real wooden boat that bigger boat, and it's carvel planked. And you told me it was built in the early '60s by a amateur builder.
Yeah, in South Puget Sound in Great View. I guess that guy was a school teacher and built it himself in his backyard, and didn't take it very far, apparently. I only know this story from the second owner, who did sort of the same thing, just used it around South Sound. So it's been our privilege to take the boat further and do more with it.
Yeah, where have you had her?
The furthest afield the boat's ever been is southeast Alaska, and I didn't own her then, but I got on board for the delivery, helped deliver through icy straits and outside Vancouver Island, and Straits Juan de Fuca on a 14-day voyage. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. And then she's been to Desolation multiple times, and what I'm hoping to do soon is go out to Hot Springs Cove on north of Tofino there.
Oh.
And back in through the straits, and that's a really beautiful place, and so that's my current goal.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So you bought her 25 years ago, and then or
26 maybe.
26, and then you sold her
23
years ago.
Yeah, right.
And then when did you buy her back?
About 5 years ago.
From friends that had
Yeah,
purchased.
We'd always know who we. The boat had always been in the family, if you will, from different friends, and I stayed with the boat. And
so you bought her back 5 years ago, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. And then what kind of work are you doing to her now?
I just built a new rudder. The rudder is 50 years old, and like I say, I want to go outside again, so I want to make sure that was skookum. And but the old bronze and oak one was in pretty good shape. I haven't cut it apart and looked at it, but this one's got a little nicer shape, and I know is sound. Mm-hmm. And we've we got hit a couple of years ago by the neighboring boat in the marina, who weren't qualified to operate their vessel, and broke a bunch of frames and started a bunch of seams, and so that was kind of a big repair in the stern here. We had to take some planks off and laminate in some frames, and but it's better than ever now.
Yeah.
And we've refastened and recaulked the boat and replaced 2/3 of the keel bolts so far.
What's she fastened with?
Originally with copper ring shank nails, or bronze ring shank nails, and now she's refastened with bronze screws.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah.
Sister fastened.
And what's the planking on this boat? Is it?
It's Alaska cedar below the water and Meranti above.
And why would you do that on a boat?
I think the Meranti is probably cheaper, and also it holds paint better. Alaska cedar just doesn't really hold its paint very well, but it's really nice below the water line. It's the bugs don't like it, and it's more resilient, tougher,
resistant, and all that. Yeah.
The Meranti's not a great wood, but it's long and clear, and it's held up 50 years. So
so when did you move to Anacortes?
In 1998.
And so why did you move up here?
15 years ago. There's better water here and more boats, and we were ready for a change. And it seemed like a natural thing to do. My wife has family roots here in Skagit County too, and we were always coming up here anyway. Yeah. And so it just seemed like a good time to move.
Made sense, huh? Yeah. And then tell me how Emerald Marine came about.
Well, I'd been in business for myself in Olympia with partners, and off and on. And but I moved here to work for a boatyard, and that was good. It got me foot in the door in the community here, and also some good connections. And but that yard is growing and not in a direction that was going to let me work on wooden boats. So we agreed it was probably better if I go out on my own, and they hire a different kind of carpenter. And that's worked well. And we trade work all the time, actually, still. So it's nice in Anacortes. There's a lot of quality craftsmen, and try to take care of every boat in the best way.
Yeah.
And so when I went back out on my own, I started a new business. Since I was no longer Olympia Shipwrights, that was our name down there. And Emerald Marine sort of comes from the Emerald Sea, and I like to think of boats as jewels, multifaceted and pretty, and and this is kind of lyrical.
Cool. So you started in '99, and so tell me what Emerald Marine does, if I can say that word.
We mostly repair wooden boats, but we also do some interior, plenty of interior modifications to all kinds of hulls, where somebody might want their galley remodeled, or their helm station remodeled for new electronics, or that kind of business. But typically in a year we'll do some planking and framing, and we've had a few groundings in the last couple of years. So we did a big repair to a cold molded what was that boat? A Cowrie built New Zealand, blanking on the designer right now, but a triple planked cold molded boat that needed a bunch of repair. It was a big deal last year.
Triple plank?
Yeah, all epoxy. And
wow.
And lately we've been doing more teak decks. We just did a all-new teak deck on a 46-foot Swan, so we've been practicing on that. We've done lots of smaller decks, but to do a complete boat, and one with edge set in the panels, you know what I mean, the planks bend along the shear line. We had to make up 35-foot long panels that we make up on the table and already have sand and caulked and everything, and then vacuum bag them down on the deck, so there's no fasteners through the deck. And that makes for a deck that'll last a long time, because you can wear them down and never hit the screws. And it means taking up all the hardware and putting it all back down.
Wow, big project.
Yeah, we're pretty satisfied about it. It came out well.
Did you guys build some boats from scratch?
Yeah, we have our last boat was a 27-foot rowing gig for our rowing club that we row every week too.
Is that the oars or whatever?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
That's a fun thing to look up.
Yeah.
Old Anacortes Rowing and Sailing Society.
Okay.
And that boat is neat. It's along the lines of what is probably the oldest preserved American small craft, which has this long, funny history. John Gardner realized that this boat was preserved.
Let's pause here for a second.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're back. Andy, we were talking about the American Star.
So the American Star was a extreme whitehall that won a famous race in New York's harbor, I think in 1823, and that race was against a English crew, and the English Navy had brought their own gig over to race, and it was for a lot of money at the time. And in attendance of that race was General Lafayette. He was quite elderly at the time, but he, of course, had helped win the Revolutionary War, and he was on his farewell tour to the United States. And the American Star won the race, and the crew gave General Lafayette the boat to thank him for what he'd done for the Revolution. And he took it and he put it on his estate outside of Paris and built a gazebo over it, or a little building anyway, and there it lay, untouched.
The boat did?
The boat did, American Star. And it's still there. And John Gardner figured that out and went over there and took the lines, and he thinks, and who am I to John Gardner would know.
Yeah.
that is the oldest known surviving American small craft.
Oh, really? So what year did they think it was built?
It would have been built right before 1822.
Oh my goodness.
And it was very, very lightly built. It was built to win races and had no floor timbers and just very few frames. And
wow.
So he came back to the States and he built a copy of that boat off of her lines called the General Lafayette, and they have it at Mystic Seaport. And I just got to see the General Lafayette last month. I was at Mystic.
Oh, really?
And it's just fantastic because I guess John himself did a lot of the finish work and just all these little details that you just can't understand in pictures.
So he built a replica of it?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
In fact, a very, very close replica from what I can tell. Mm-hmm. And then on this coast, in Port Townsend for the Wooden Boat Foundation, they built another version, also a very close replica, called the Salish Star, which people around here are probably familiar with. And then fellows started building another replica out on the islands called Island Star, but the project was abandoned. And the Classic Craft, the TSCA, the Small Craft Association,
mm-hmm.
helped, the John Gardner grant helped get that going. Mm-hmm. And we agreed to take the molds and the half-started boat to store it because the project was stalled. And as it turned out, between us and the Oars Rowing Club, we managed to finish the boat and call it Island Star. And it is built more West Coast style and a little heavier for better longevity, and it has just different details at the gunnels and different woods. And so we're pleased to have her to row every week.
Wow. So how many oars does that boat run?
4.
4, okay. Mm-hmm. Four people or 2 people?
4 rowers and 1 coxswain.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So 1 oar per rower. Mm-hmm. So they're big oars.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, sweeps.
Sweeps, okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know all the technical language for the rowing. So that's the kind of rowing you guys do in your oars club, huh?
Yeah, they have gigs there. They have like Cornish Bay gigs. Erica and Glide are 2 of them. Mm-hmm. And if people go to the Oars website, they can see pictures.
Okay.
Or there's pictures of Island Star on our website.
And what's the Oars website address?
I think it's oars.org.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, very cool. So what are some of the funnest projects you've worked on over the years, Andy?
Well, I got in on building the Lady Washington, and that was exciting.
Really?
Yeah, as a young
Was that back in the 90s that was built?
Yeah, it started in the 80s.
Okay.
Well, actually, it launched in... Well, I'm going to embarrass myself by getting the date wrong, but I think it launched in 89, I want to say.
It was the state centennial year, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was right around then, and they didn't quite make it. Yeah,
okay.
as I remember. So
launched in 89.
I didn't work on it a whole bunch, but I got in, 2 solid months of double time.
Really?
I built some things down below, like the crew's head and some of the master's cabin. And
so you did some of the finished carpentry, interior stuff?
Interior stuff.
Fun.
And I volunteered down there some too, helping them hang some planks. And
recently, or? No,
back then.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I stay in touch with the shipwrights who work on that boat are my friends. So
yeah.
There's that. So that's always been a pleasure. I mean, just that we have that ambassadorship.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Floating around and all the education they do on it is meaningful. Yeah. Building Island Star, I've got to say, is one of the funnest things I've ever done. You just don't get to build boats like that.
Is that a lap-strake boat?
Mm-hmm. Okay. It's cedar, and we were blessed to get some of the Pocock cedar from Steve Chapin, who built Salish Star.
He did?
Yeah. And
I didn't know that.
He and Alex Spear. So Steve has all this beautiful old growth for the Pocock shells, but he had some dimensions that didn't work for his shells, but worked out very nicely for Island Star. So this wood came, through this long history. It's special wood.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
And then we've been involved in some other. I like the old boats with, meaningful histories. We just have been helping restore Frank Fredette's own boat, Piscawa. And
what's it called?
Piscawa.
Piscawa?
Yeah, Francis Fredette was an influential designer in British Columbia. Mm-hmm. and so that's been great to get that boat going again.
Yeah. That was a restoration project?
Yeah. It's kind of ongoing, but the boat's running now. New engine and new main deck, and some new frames and some new planks. Yeah.
So that's a motor vessel? Or?
Yeah, it was a trawler, but he also towed with it, and he built it in the 30s on a barge in Victoria's Inner Harbor, and sort of launched his career by doing that.
Really? And what was his name again?
Frank Fredette.
Okay, Frank Fredette.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I wanted to ask you too was I think I mentioned I'm writing a little book about for a first-time boat builder, how to go through the process of deciding what to build and knowing what that looks like. Any tips you would give or ideas or whatever for a first-time boat builder? What would you say to them?
I tell people, no matter what boat they're looking at, if they ask my advice, I always recommend that they pick the smallest boat that will do what they want to do, just because it's cheaper and easier. And then, of course, small boats are good because you can learn a lot for not a lot of cost. And so even people considering bigger boats, I think should build a small boat.
Mm-hmm.
And get out on the water. I mean, that's the thing, is to get experience on the whole.
By small boat, what size range are you talking roughly?
Well, I think it all depends on what you want to do.
Yeah.
A lot of people build pygmy kayaks and they have their boat needs met, and I think that's wonderful. That's terrific.
Yeah.
It's, portable and inexpensive, and not a lot of maintenance and all that. Myself, I'd rather sail and row. Around here you want something seaworthy enough you can get caught in a chop or tide rip or something like that. So some length isn't as important as hull form probably. So, something that could take that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. So start small.
And then
what else?
I think it all depends on your carpentry skills. So if you have decent skills to start with, you can really challenge yourself with a more complex hull form or more traditional techniques. But if you need to build up those skills, then you should probably stick to plywood and epoxy and get more tool sense, build your own tools, get your methods down, and get more experience with whatever you build, because you'll have a better your ideas about what you want will change.
Yeah. Let's pause here for a second. Okay, we're back. So, Andy, we were talking about some boat tips. So talk to us about ideas that will change, as far as your plans go and stuff.
Well, like in my case, the first boat I ever built was a Bolger Teal, which is a great all-around boat, cheap to build, and it turned out to be my dinghy for a long time. But on the other hand, it didn't row as well as I wanted, and it wasn't as seaworthy as I wanted. It wouldn't stand alone as its own boat, and it was too big for a tender, so there you go. And that's just how my boating evolved. But I'm thinking that, a guy new to boats has to decide if he's planning to be out by himself or be out with his wife or kids, or, what his goal is. And choose a boat that's going to satisfy a majority of his ideas now, and then his ideas will likely change or maybe not, but but it's good to think about what the use is.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. So we're going to wrap it up here. Why don't you give a little advertisement here for Emerald Marine Carpentry and what you guys do and your contact information.
Oh, thanks. Well, we're happy to help people keep their boats in good shape, and we're happy to use our skills to improve their boats too. And you can find us on the web at emeraldmarine.com, and we have a little blog too there that you're welcome to see some of our work, and just come visit Anacortes too. It's a nice place, and be part of our community here. So I appreciate you coming to do that yourself.
Yeah, you're very welcome. So you do new builds, restorations, refurbishing, repair, the whole 9 yards.
Yep. We've done all of that, and
pretty much all size boats, too.
Up to 60 feet here at this facility, yeah. We've worked off-site on bigger boats, but we'd rather stay around the shop.
Yeah, sure. Very good.
Yeah.
Well, anything else you'd like to add?
No, thanks. It's just a pleasure, and thanks for doing what you do. It's really entertaining.
All right, good. Thanks a lot, Andy. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay. Thanks, Andy, for taking the time to do the interview in Anacortes. It was fun to go to your shop and see what you're up to and sit on your boat, the Windsong, which is really a cool sloop built back in the 60s. Keep up the great work there with your team. It's really awesome. Cool thing about it is they build wooden boats and they use Apple computers, which, like I told Andy, doesn't get much better than that. Okay. Thanks again for tuning in today. If you'd like to connect with me, you can shoot me an email, dan@hookedonwoodenboats.com. You can write comments on my website, where, by the way, each week when I publish the podcast on Thursday, I write some show notes for the podcast, and I include pictures related to the interview that I do. So check that out, and you can write comments at the bottom of that. You can also connect with me on Facebook, Twitter, or Pinterest, where I am under the heading Wooden Boat Dan. And I also have a voicemail feedback hotline, 424-261-2360. The other thing I would really appreciate is if you would subscribe to my podcast through iTunes. If you go to the iTunes store to the podcast section, and you put in the search box there, Hooked on Wooden Boats, you'll find me and you can subscribe. And if you would, please give me a 5-star review if you love the show. That brings me up in the ratings, gets more attention to the show, gets me a bigger audience, more people having fun with the wooden boats. It's like, that's the whole point here, folks. So please do that. If you make purchases through Amazon, from Amazon, if you do so through my link that I'm going to give you, I get paid a small commission, which helps pay for my podcasting equipment and my fuel and stuff like that. So the link for that is it is hookedonwoodenboats.com/Amazon. If you go to that link and you purchase anything on Amazon, I get paid a small commission. Thanks in advance for your support. I really appreciate it. If you're not in the wooden boat game, folks, it's time you get in. Just walk down to your local drugstore and buy a Wooden Boat magazine. That's the simplest way to start. And then from there, find a local wooden boat festival and go to that. And then find a school and find some local builders and get out on a wooden boat. Have some fun with it. It's really a blast. I'm having fun. You can have fun too. So there you go. Anyway, have a great week. Keep the bright side up and the barnacled side down. Wooden Boat Dan over and out. God bless.